So we're going to we're getting ready to hear a special presentation from a very special person to me. No, this is not another relative. I know every time I said that today, that was my next introduction. But this young man is a partner of ours. He is a partner in the community through training. And also, if you follow us on our website and you watch our podcast, he just released a podcast yesterday, I think it was, with myself and some of our LEOs, our law enforcement officers. This gentleman, Blue Stallion, Rob Marcus, is where we are able to have our podcast host, where our podcast are host. And so it is an awesome thing, and we are always looking for people to sit in on podcasts with us, to hear your side of the story. The name of our podcast is Stories from the Other Side. So Rob has not only been the host for us for our podcast, but he has also offered an opportunity to all of us. So when our individual, we say returning citizens. When an individual has been incarcerated, they come back into the community. So they go through our programs, or that may not have gone through all of our programs, but some portions of it, or whatever the case may be. They are inducted into the Hall of Change, and they become agents of change. They're giving back, they're doing great things. Rob is so gracious to offer our agents of change 36 weeks of training. 36 weeks of leadership training, how to be a better leader of yourself, how do you better lead others. That is a blessing. And when they heard that, they were like, wow. Somebody like really cares about us that much. Because sometimes in that individuals that have been in the system tend to think people don't care. But Rob Marcus, Shindell, Blue Stallion cares. These are second chance heart people. And I am so proud to say that we are a partner, that we are a family in this community, and they are making a difference. And so Rob, without me going any further, without further ado, please you all help me welcome our next and our keynote speaker, Mr. Rob Marcus.
Thank you so much, Juanita, for having me here today. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's a blessing to be in a room with so many intelligent and caring people. You guys have heard a lot today, a lot of very, very deep conversations have been had today at this conference. And so it's an honor for us to be here. Just to touch real quick on what Juanita said and what we're going to be doing and really why. We've got a number of things. We're going to talk a little bit more about this, but obviously we have all these things going on with the youth and trying to keep them on the right path and encourage them to make the right decisions. So we have a lot of movements. There's obviously been some catalysts in the news of late here in our home area that are pushing things a little bit faster. They're already in the works, but they're pushing things a little bit faster. And so there's a lot of movements going on. And as part of those movements, we had been discussing the agents of change. And the fact that the agents of change come from a broad diversity of groups and demographics, and they have committed to making a change and walking a certain path. And I only think that it's fitting that those individuals who have made that choice, that want to continue, have the opportunity to do that. So that's what we're doing with the leadership development program that we're going to be putting them through. And quite honestly, for us, the idea is that with a little bit of that training, they can take their stories out into the communities, hopefully to the schools, and start touching people with those stories, because they've walked that walk and they've made those decisions. And I think that they have very, very important knowledge and advice and counsel to give, especially to the youth of different ages, to give back and help in that movement. So that's really what we're doing there. And I appreciate appreciate their willingness to take that next step as well. Okay, so again, you guys have been through a lot of deep stuff today. I don't have any videos to show, right? I've got a couple of slides, not many. This is really more of a conversation between us, and it's really centered around influence, impact, and accountability. You know, if there's one thing that I would say is being in leadership development that human beings are pretty poor at, self-accountability. We're just not good at it, right? It's proven itself over time, throughout thousands of years. Our wonderful founding fathers, whatever you do or don't think about them, came up with an amazing system here in the United States of government, but the one thing that they knew was we're not good at governing ourselves, right? So they had to implement checks and balances. Natural law doesn't work. So at the end of the day, that accountability becomes more and more important, and how do we hold ourselves accountable, and how do we hold each other accountable? So I do not come out of being touched directly by incarceration. Okay, I'll be open with you up front. I do have, unfortunately, a lot of experience with loss, and so today is not for that story in depth. All I would tell you is that in the fall of 2023, I lost my mom to a fight with 2 stage 4 cancers. I was in the hospital with her fighting for 6 weeks. And 8 days later, I ended up losing my 14-year-old daughter, all of which was a surprise. However, what I want to bring up to you today, and part of the reason why this is all near and dear to my heart, is my daughter's little brother, who at the time was 11, going on almost 12, lost his grandmother and his big sister. And that amount of trauma, especially in that short amount of time, closed him up. He's been to counseling, hasn't done much, right? He doesn't like it, doesn't open up. And this vibrant little boy has turned into kind of a rock, right? And closed and clammed up. So we do what we can, but I was in the military, okay? And I was in the intelligence sector, and I know a lot about terrorism, counterterrorism. I know a lot about how it works. I know a lot about how organized crime works, right? And I know that they prey on people's anger, people's emotions. That's how they recruit. That's how they pull you in, right? And so my biggest concern is that as he goes through adolescence, and he goes through all the changes that he has, and then you layer in the loss that he has had and the feelings that he is internalizing, right? And he goes through and he goes into soon high school, and these influences start coming at him and picking them apart, and he's not getting out. My biggest fear, quite honestly, is that he's susceptible to being pulled to that side. I'm not saying he's going to. I haven't raised him that way, but I don't ultimately have control over that. And you know, one of the things that a lot of times we miss in life, frankly, is that we don't have as much control as we like to think that we have, right? And I think that we kind of start to learn that. The older we get, the more we kind of get that concept. So I'm internally, I'm very concerned, right? So it's important for me that people like him and others hear the stories constantly and get the wisdom that others who have been through these experiences and mistakes, that they're constantly reminded that's not what you want. That's not where you want to go. You don't want to go to the darkness, go to the light, right? Try to stay to the light. Talk about things when people are influencing you. So that's kind of where I come from here. The other thing that we're not great at is that we always hold on to where we came from and what we went through. And I know that's been talked about a lot today. here's a serious reality that we got to get into our heads. Everybody says that the last generation or the new generation is different, right? It's been said all the way over time. I'm here to tell you today that this generation is different. It is different. I'm probably not the youngest one in the room. I'm also not the oldest one. I'm 45 years old. But I can tell you that my generation watched 8 tracks go out, cassette tapes come in, right? Go out. CDs come in, go out. iPods come in, go out, and turn into smartphones, right? We don't have to go through the video or the video games, okay? I know this. My graphics didn't look anywhere near real when I was playing video games, right? They do today. So, this generation, the point is, over the years, technology has gotten faster and faster and faster in its advancements, right? We hit that in my generation, but this generation is walking around with things like ChatGPT in their hand. They don't need our advice. They've got Chat's advice, right? If they do come to you for advice and they ask you a question, they don't like the answer, they can manipulate Chat to give them the answer they want if they tell the prompt right. You know what I'm saying? That's a different world than any of us grew up in or are used to. Okay? Juanita and I, in a recent podcast, started to talk a little bit about the phones. The phones. We've done lost the fight on the phones already. So what we should probably spend our time thinking about is how we're going to coach them with the phones. Try to use the phones in the right ways. Try to limit it a little bit, right? But we've lost the fight on the phones. I made it to 12 with my son before he got the phone. And I will tell you that at least 3 years leading up to that were miserable because everybody else had the dang phone. Right? So there comes a point where we as parents realized that we were actually being detrimental to him by him not having the phone from an influence perspective, especially at school with his friends, than giving him the phone. Yeah, it's a thing, right? Because when you're the only one without it, you know what happens. And how quickly that can spread and how they do that, it's intense, okay? So they are, in fact, different. We're not shielded from divorce rates, right? How many people and children are growing up in one-parent households, you know, with step-parents, with boyfriends and girlfriends in and out, okay? The nuclear family that used to be preached, it's hard to find today. They're growing up different. Social media and the internet and the pressures that are brought on them from peer groups and even outside, right? There was a time when we looked up to sports players. There was a time when we looked up to musicians. There was a time when we looked up to actors and such. And today, those folks don't necessarily take that role as seriously as they once did. It's changed, right? And somehow, we've arrived a little bit, you might agree with it, you might not, but there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of concern for repercussion today. That there's plenty of ways to do it that get to the same answer, so I don't want you to tell me how to do it. As long as I get to the right answer, I'm fine. Right? But there's a right and a wrong. No, there's really not. There's right, gray, and wrong. And a lot of times we're starting to live more in the gray than in the right. And as that goes on, Now you start to slide over to the other side. So this generation is different, and what we're experiencing with them is different. I think it's important, though, to understand that that doesn't mean that they're broken. That doesn't mean that they're messed up. It means that we have to figure out how to adapt ourselves to go to them on that level. And it means that we have to fight to accept and acknowledge what they're going through, because it is different. And when they say, you don't get it, we have to at least think that there's at least a 50% chance that we maybe really don't get it. Because there's things happening at school today that didn't used to happen at school with these kids. There's middle schoolers that are, convulsing at the staircase because they vaped something that shouldn't have been in the vape. Or they had an allergic reaction to something that was in the vape in middle school. Right? You get mad at each other today, it's not a fight to teach a lesson, it's a fight to end a life. Didn't used to be that way. So we have to get ourselves to a point where we understand that we're the leaders in the room, and our job is to figure out how to meet them where they're at and then take them where we should take them to go. So I want to acknowledge this. There's nobody in this room that's not trying. Right? There's not. We're all trying. And I think that most people are trying in some way, shape, or form to help find a solution to this issue. I'm not even sure that we necessarily need resources, even though resources is the easiest thing and excuse to use. Right? If you just give me more of this, I can do better. And we do that in any facet of life. But I think that what we need is more working together, more integrated plans that include all of the stakeholders, all of the people who are involved, not just the school system, not just the law enforcement, not just the community leaders, not only the parents, but everybody coming together along with the kids as necessary to understand the problems and tackle the challenge. I've been to a lot of the community meetings recently that are being held around this, both through the FailSafe Sound the Alarm and also the Spotsy County Sheriff's Citizens Advisory Board. And those folks have heard me say a few times that it's pretty rare to be able to tackle a very complex issue with a very simple solution. Now, there's times when you can get a bag of simple solutions and throw them at a complex issue, and you might get somewhere, right? But these problems are very, very complex, and they require a lot of hard work, communication, teamwork, right? Cohesion, not just within the groups themselves, but even within the geographic boundaries. It is amazing with technology the way it is today, how far the influence can actually reach. Right? You take Stafford County, for example. That's a long county. If you take the southernmost school to the northernmost school in Stafford County, that's a good amount of distance. Those kids do not bump into each other regularly, but they know each other. I saw it. Middle school wrestling. Right? The wrestling team shows up for the tournament and they all know each other. It's like, how do these kids all know each other? That school didn't even meet. That one was rained out, right? Or that one didn't happen. That meet was canceled for whatever reason. And they know each other. How is that? Huh?
Gaming on Discord?
I mean, very likely. Right? They all come together. So the influence from a geographic perspective is large. So you can't tackle a problem just in Spotsy County. You can't tackle a problem just in Fredericksburg or Stafford and think that that's going to solve it. Because the concentric circles of the influence are much greater than that. And we're not even talking about the people who intentionally come in from even further outside. Right? Just to pray. So, we need a lot more integration. We need a lot more teamwork. We have got to come together and work integrated. Part of coming together as a team is honoring everybody's individual efforts and then collaborating. Because there's very few people out there in the world who don't want to see our kids succeed. Right? That's, I mean, maybe there's more than very few, I don't know, but that's pretty scary to think about. So I think that for the most part, everybody wants to see our kids succeed. So I think John Maxwell got a number of things right when it comes to leadership, but I especially think that he got it right when it comes to his 4 levels of influence. And it starts with modeling. Right? And here's a reality about leadership. If you can't lead yourself, you shouldn't be leading others. Because it starts with you. Right? So when we talk about modeling, I think we got an issue. I know that when I turn on the news, I don't see a whole lot of it. Not the type that I would want to see. On any side. Doesn't matter who you are politically or anything else. There used to be an adult way to handle things. Right? There used to be discipline. There used to be restraint. And we don't see a whole lot of that happening today. Okay? So I don't know if we should go to number 2. Maybe we should just stop and work on number 1, and then when we succeed there, we can come back into class and we can talk about number 2 then. But I'm going to go ahead and go. So motivating, right? What we say and how we say it. Trying to promote the good behavior, right? See one, do one, coach one. It's a learning, teaching style. Mentoring. And multiplying. As leaders, what should we be trying to grow? Should we be trying to grow followers or other leaders?
Other leaders.
Why?
So they encourage the torch.
Huh?
So they encourage the torch.
Yeah. Growth. Right. Leaders who multiply leaders multiply leaders. Right? It's like compound interest. If you're growing leaders, and those leaders are growing leaders, the world's a better place. Right? There's one thing I should go back to, and I told this to the group when we had them a couple weeks ago. John Maxwell's definition of leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And I tend to agree to an extent. However, I think in today's world, there has to be more. Right? I think there has to be more. Because I think it needs to be positive. I think leadership needs to be positive. I think leadership influence needs to be positive. Right? There's not technically a Webster's definition for leadership. You'll find one for leader. Most of everybody's definition they have for leadership will have influence in it. But you know what other word is very similar?
Power.
Did you know that before a couple weeks ago?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
You got it.
Antoine, got it. You're exactly right. Power. And so often, power is used for negative and not positive. Right? So there has to be more in the definition of leadership. And we have to carry more as leaders. And we have to teach more to the leaders that we bring up and multiply. Right? It has to be for the positive. Also got to be grounded. So we have what we talk about, the 4 anchors of influence. Listen loudly. Lead together. Model the standard. And mentor intentionally. Is there anybody in this room who thinks that they're not a leader? That's a gotcha, right? I'm not going to raise my hand. No, seriously. Does everybody in this room realize that you are all leaders? That you all have influence? That influencing didn't start on Instagram? You influence others, every single one of you. In your family. On the road when you get in your car in a bad mood in the morning. You influence me when you cut me off trying to get onto the interstate because you're in a hurry. Right? It's not a positive influence. But I don't stop my car. Some people do. Right? We all influence others, and we are all leaders. It's not a you don't have a choice whether you're going to be a leader or not be a leader. Your choice is whether you're going to lead well or not. That's your choice. Whether you're going to influence for the positive or you're not. That's your choice. So, how do we fix it? We've got some things that we need to rebuild. Do we agree with that? Right? There's some principles that we've got to go back to and restore. And that's going to take a lot of work because there's a lot of consternation around whether this should or shouldn't be, or can or can't be, whether it's in the school, at home, whatever, in the sports. But where did the values go? The morals, the structure. And by the way, you don't have to be religious. You don't have to. Thomas Jefferson technically didn't believe in God. Yet the Smithsonian has what's called the Jefferson Bible. Does anybody know it? Have you seen it? I saw it when they had that on display. Yeah. Thomas Jefferson created a book. You've seen it, right? Mm-hmm. Created a book that he called the Life and Teachings of Jesus of Nazareth. He took the Gospels in 4 different languages, literally cut out passages, put them together in 4 columns, and used that book as a study for the moral teachings of Jesus. Not as the Son of God, but as a moral teacher. Religion out of it. I forgot, I was going to bring my copy. I forgot. Discipline and purpose. We don't go anywhere unless we put it back. So we've got to work together to talk about putting it back. Does it need to be in the schools? Yes, it does. Because as a parent, I can tell you that the kids are at school more than they're with me during the week and the school year. Right? You can't call me with something that happened at school in the morning, and you call me at the end of the day to let me know that when my son gets home, I need to punish him for something that happened in the day. And I ask, okay, but what did you do when it happened? Because he done forgot about it by the time he got home. Okay, maybe he didn't forget about it. That's an exaggeration. But you see my point? Cause and effect. Something's got to happen, right? It doesn't have to be slapping his wrist or putting, but there has to be a consequence to the action, and it has to occur. That doesn't happen anymore. Right? I had that, that's a real story. A teacher called me. I said, okay, what'd you do about it? She's like, what? I'm calling you. I said, it's 3 o'clock. What time did this happen? Oh, it happened at like 9:30. So what, what was the consequence when it occurred? Of course, I will do something about it, but it's not going to be as effective. Like, it can't be okay to do it there, and then you call me, and then I punish. That can't happen. That doesn't work. Right? Now, on the home front, yeah, a lot of parents aren't home. You know why? Because they're trying to afford $12 eggs. Right? They're trying to have a life. Maybe they're working 2 jobs because they want to be able to go on vacation so they get a break. Whatever. The reality is, all of the sides have to come together and be on the same stinking page to get anything done. Right? And most of it comes back to this. Because this is a guide. It's how you treat each other. It's how you don't treat each other. So let's make character visible, not just theatrical. So let me ask you, are you modeling? Are you showing them this, or are you showing them something different? We all make mistakes. We're not perfect. We're humans. Right? But generally speaking, what are you modeling? Because they're watching. They're listening. They're probably hacking. I know my 14-year-old now, almost 14, he got into his mom's iPad, told me all kinds of stuff I didn't want to hear. Just saying. Right? That's what she gets for leaving him alone. He's 14, she can do that. Might want to lock up her iPad. So here's the thing, how do we do this? I've got like an overarching thing, but the reality is most of you in this room know better than me. We just got to bring it together into one. Right? We've got counselors. We've got restorative justice. We've got all of these different groups. We've got FailSafe trying to put stuff together. We've got the Spotsy County Sheriff's Department wanting to do stuff. Right? We've got all of these entities that want to help. How do we bring it together? And one shouldn't move forward without including the other. So we got to figure that out, right? But listening circles, involving the kids, involving the parents. The school's not making decisions without understanding maybe the parents' input, right? The parents need to get on the same page with what's happening at school and why. There's some things that we wish they could do, they're just not allowed to do anymore. So how do we get around it? How do we figure it out? But if we're not talking in a constructive environment because it's hard, or it's too hard, or it's too late, or I don't have time, bless you, then it doesn't change. And the definition of insanity is now, it's not a sales pitch, but you ask me, I personally believe everything rises and falls on leadership. Doesn't matter if it's in your life, in your work, In school, it all rises and falls on leadership. There might be different, sliding scale for that, with kids and adults and everything, but that's the reality. It's all about leadership. So is it doable? Is it doable?
Sure. I believe so. We doing it.
Are we?
We're getting there.
We went through, we're doing it till we're getting there. We're on the way.
Yeah, room full of leaders, we halfway there.
Right? Yeah, sure. No, we are, especially with that group, right? We're gonna get the agents of change. We're gonna get them trained up in leadership. We're gonna have them do some public speaking, and then hopefully we're gonna deploy them, and they're gonna help. That's like this much, right? So all I'm saying is, if you're a counselor, if you're an educator, if you're a doctor, right? If you're restorative justice, if you're FailSafe, if you're law enforcement, we find a way to get into the room. We get it all represented, families and all, and we figure it out, and we talk about it, and we at least identify what the different sides to the problem look like, instead of trying to fix it in a vacuum, because we think we know. So here's the thing. You can make an impact individually. I'm not going to discount that. But the reality is that together we can move mountains. And this problem, complex issue, requires us to be able to move mountains if we're going to make the headway that we need to make as quickly as we need to make it. Because I don't know about y'all, but I kind of feel like I'm headed towards living in a comic book. Honestly. Okay? Seriously, I am. A few years ago, I took a work trip out to Portland. I grew up in California. So I took a work trip out to Portland, and there was a time when Portland was like this bustling, microbrewery, live place, right? It was a big deal. I get to Portland only to find out that at 5 o'clock every evening, the police cordon off a small section downtown for safety. And that is where everybody goes to go to dinner and have fun in downtown Portland anymore, because if you're outside of that perimeter, they can't protect you. When I showed up to the hotel, I was told not to walk the block and a half to the conference. Why? Because the prosecutors weren't prosecuting. And all of the homeless who are in Portland know that they can get away with hurting people. So they're all either carrying knives, guns, what have you. They're all sleeping on the benches. Now, me being the hard-headed former Army guy that I am, right, I walked to the conference, past the people sleeping on the benches, right? And I didn't have an issue. Doesn't mean that somebody doesn't. When I was taking my Uber back to the airport after the conference, the Uber driver was explaining to me how active he was trying to get he and his wife out of Portland, because he and his passengers were getting shot at on the interstate from under the overpass regularly, because again, it's like Gotham City, literally, right? There's certain movies and comic books we don't want to come true. I know we like the technology aspect of things, but we don't want those to come to fruition in our home, right? So it feels like that's where we're headed. I don't know, but what I do know is that we need to stop, and we need to do something about it, and we do better together, right? As leaders and growing leaders. So I appreciate all of that. You can see just in this room how much we can do together just by getting to know each other and understanding each other's mission and working together. One other thing I wanted to point out real quick. you notice this started with listen loudly. What does it not say? Yeah. Yeah. Doesn't say be the loudest in the room. Right? Doesn't say being loudest in the room. It says listen loudly. This is a great quote. If we don't build the table, the system will build the walls. I don't think that's a future statement. Right? I think it's already kind of started to occur. If maybe not even started, maybe we're past that. Right? But this is what we're trying to get back from in this room. So, y'all have a card on your table. I know some of you guys had it face up already. If you got it turned down, please turn it over. On this card, you'll see that we've got John Maxwell's 4 steps of influence. We have the guided by the 4 anchors. It's all right there, just so that you can remind yourself. But the great part is my next step. Right? This is where you'll be able to fill out an action statement that starting this month, you will do whatever it is that you will do to move the mission forward. Okay? You can list your accountability partner, and then you've got a signature of commitment. I would love to see you fill it out now. We're not going to make you fill it out now, but I would love to see you fill it out now. Here's the power in this. There is something about writing things down and signing our name to it. Okay? And even if me or Miss Juanita don't see you do it, there's somebody else that sees you do it. Okay? So do me a favor, take the step. Even if you don't do it right now, take the step. And at least take the card, because that's like 1 ache. Just kidding. But seriously, come on. You guys, we're almost done. I got it. We're almost done. Come, stay with me here. Okay? Seriously, let's take this serious, because this is a big deal. All right, it's not a performance, it's a promise. Can I share something super exciting, personal with you all? Okay, we gotta go through the final thought first. Okay, we already talked about that. Oh, okay, here's the information for Blue Stallion, but you have it on the card too. Okay, so you can get a hold of us, please. We like visitors. We love talking to people. You know, you're not there. Look, there's no credit card terminal in our office. Okay, so you're not going to get sold on anything if you come to talk. We like talking leadership. We like solving problems. We like helping people. It's what we're here for in the community. You can find us on all of our socials. Excuse the website; it's a bit of overhaul, but it's good to get you the information that you need. The exciting thing that I wanted to share with you is that somehow I ended up writing a book. I have no idea how. Well, you know, here's the thing. Here's the thing. How crazy is this? So I've had these thoughts on my mind for a long time, right? I started working full-time when I was 16. I got into food service management and retail management and joined the Army for a vacation. Came back, got into government contracting, okay? And throughout my journey, I realized that we're doing a lot of promoting based on individual skills and not necessarily leadership potential, and not developing leadership potential in people. And then we wonder why there's so many problems when we promote somebody to leading a team or as a manager or what have you, okay? So I've had these thoughts on my mind for a long time. And when we started the company, because business has changed drastically, this started as an ebook. I started putting these thoughts down, And then it was like, you know, why, like, I don't wanna do this as an ebook, like, a short PDF ebook, that doesn't give it justice. And then it just expanded and snowballed from there until we flushed out and we ended up with a book, which I think is better. And it talks to people more, and I love how it turned out. So it takes you a little bit through the journey of what happens when you're an individual contributor, right, and how to get over those hurdles, getting into supervision and management, and then making the leap from manager to leader, and even being a leader or executive who's fallen a little bit far from the tree, right? So I think it can help a lot of people. I think a lot of people will it'll resonate with them and understand. So I hope, my hope is you don't get rich by writing a book, trust me, so don't worry about that. But I do hope that all of this that we were able to put down helps as many people as possible. So it's actually the e-book version of the full book just got posted to Amazon, and the editor is updating and putting the soft copy and the hard copy and everything up there. So if you're inclined, you're interested in stuff like this, please do. And the cover designed by my beautiful wife, Shindell. There's nothing that we do at Blue Stallion. Some of you have been to the office. There's nothing that we do that doesn't have a lot of stuff packed into the imagery, and this book cover is no different. So the more you look at it, the more you read, the more you'll see kind of develop out of the cover. So it's kind of fun that way. So other than that, it's 3:40. Everybody, it has been a pleasure working with you and growing with you today. Thank you so much for coming to the conference. I know she's going to come back up, but can we give FailSafe a round of applause for